Welcome back to Logic Paleo. When you think of the ocean today, you think of a vast body of salt water teeming with fish and other animals. But how were the oceans during prehistoric times? Well, today we're going to find out. First off, let's start with the most basic. How salty were these prehistoric oceans? Well, according to studies, the salinity of the oceans has remained relatively constant since the Triassic period, which began around 252 million years ago. This means that just like today, the ocean's salinity would have been enough to make your eyes water. What about the temperature of the oceans? Well, according to the same research, the temperature of the oceans have also remained relatively constant since the Triassic, with only slight variations. What about the oxygen levels? Well, here's where things get interesting. The amount of dissolved oxygen in the ocean is crucial for aquatic life. And according to studies, oxygen levels have actually increased since the beginning of the Triassic. This means that the oceans would have been more hospitable to large animals that need more oxygen. What kind of animals lived in these prehistoric oceans? Well, let's start with the most famous prehistoric animal, the plesiosaur. Plesiosaurs were a diverse group of marine reptiles that lived from the Triassic to the Cretaceous. They were perfectly adapted for life in the water with their streamlined bodies and 4 large flippers. Another famous prehistoric animal was the ichthyosaur. Ichthyosaurs were also marine reptiles, but they were more fish-like in appearance with a pointed snout and a dorsal fin. They were also perfectly adapted for life in the water and were among the first animals to be studied by naturalists. But what about sharks? Well, sharks have been around for a very long time, but they weren't the huge, terrifying creatures that we know today. In fact, most prehistoric shark species were much smaller than the sharks we see today. What about plants and algae? Well, the oceans were full of them. In fact, the first macroscopic algae appeared in the ocean during the Proterozoic Eon, around 635 million years ago. These algae were the ancestors of the kelp forests that we see today. Kelp forests are home to a variety of animals, including the giant sea turtle, which also lived during prehistoric times. So you might be wondering what the giant sea turtle ate. Well, they mostly ate kelp. In fact, the giant sea turtle was one of the largest animals that ever lived, reaching lengths of over 12 meters and weighing over a ton. And finally, let's talk about the most bizarre prehistoric ocean animal, the ammonite. Ammonites were a type of cephalopod that lived from the Devonian to the Cretaceous. They were closely related to modern-day squids and octopuses, but they had a hard, protective shell. So there you have it, a glimpse into the prehistoric oceans. What do you think? Would you have liked to live in the prehistoric oceans? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got lots of fun stuff coming up. See you next time on Logic Paleo.